How's it going? Thad Brown here with you on the Endgame. It is Monday, April the 20th. Happy 420 Day to everybody out there who celebrates. Sabres with an incredible comeback win tonight. We're going to talk all about that today for sure. And Josh Allen, Joe Brady, talking about day one, or at least month one of the Brady era. Brandon Beane addressing the draft. Got a whole lot to get to today on the Endgame. Might hit on some live golf rumors as well. But let's start with that Sabres game last night. And was lucky enough to be in the building for it. And that was the loudest I've ever heard any arena in my professional career. Now, keep in mind that most of the games that I've attended have been outdoor games, Bills games, football games. There's not many indoor games in there. A few domes for sure. And obviously some places where it's really loud. Arrowhead and Kansas City's up there. Seattle, although the last time the Bills were in Seattle, they decimated the Seahawks so badly that there's really not much else for the home fans to cheer about. So game one for the Sabres, coming back from 2-0 down, that is the number one in terms of loudness for me. That was a whole new decibel level, and deservedly so. What a comeback for Buffalo. What a game. What an amazing piece of work there for the Sabres. And this was a team that through 52 minutes was dead as a doornail. They had no chance. I know that Buffalo carried the play. I know they were out shooting the Bruins almost 2-1, but Boston had owned this game. Boston had played this game exactly how the Bruins apparently want to handle the Sabres. They were suffocating. They were allowing shots at the angles that they preferred. Jacob Swayman in goal was really good, not great. He did allow a few juicy rebounds through the first 2-3 periods. But for the most part, Boston was in total control of that game. And it was 2-0, 8 minutes to go. The Sabres had multiple power plays where they couldn't even get the puck in the offensive zone, let alone getting any sort of threatening chance. And then out of nowhere, Tage Thompson scores twice. Matthias Samson gets the winner. They get an empty netter, and the game's over. I mean, at the snap of a finger almost. And the number one thing that I come out of that game thinking is, if Buffalo won't lose that game, who are they going to lose to in this playoffs? Who is gonna be the team? And obviously, look, they're going to play better teams, but it's not like Boston was terrible. We'll talk a little more about that later. But the Sabres come out of this game last night with as much confidence as you possibly can have for any sports team, hockey or whatever. For the rest of the playoffs, I don't care what the situation is. Down 3-0, going to the third period, down 3-0. This Sabres team is still going to believe they have a shot. And it's not just blind delusion. It's based on 4 months of evidence, which was confirmed in the first postseason game this group has had. I posted on X last night after the first Tage goal. The Sabres have been rising from the dead all year. Why can't they do it again? And that's exactly what happened in this game. And it created, one of the elite memories that any Sabres fan is going to have. I mean, can you imagine again going back to early December and saying, yeah, this is the year you're going to see a Mount Rushmore level postseason game for the Sabres. And that's what I think this is going to be, even though it's game one of round one. Incredible atmosphere, incredible moment. The guys talked about it afterward. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen said he thought it was the loudest he's ever heard KeyBank Center. I think he's probably right. I don't have anywhere near the number of games of experience in that building as he does, but I can't imagine that thing has ever been louder. Now, Lindy Ruff talked about the building shaking. I didn't feel that up in the press box, but that was about the only extreme reaction that I didn't notice. It was as perfect a night of sports as Sabres fans could possibly dream up without having a trophy at the end of it. It was just an amazing game. And again, for this Sabres team to pull that one out, I don't know how you expect them to have any sort of problem. First of all, this series is probably done. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. But the Sabres had no business winning that game. And I think even most of the fans probably were okay with that. I know that this team is much better than happy to be here, but the whole day was a celebration of the Sabres being in the playoffs. If they showed up flat and lost a game to a goalie who played really well, and Swayman did for 50-plus minutes, to a team with a really good game plan. I mean, the two goals, the first goal that the Sabres allowed was as much a bad bounce as anything. The second goal was 3 point-blank shots or whatever it was. I mean, those are things that happen in a hockey game. There was nothing other than the power play. The power play is a despicable thing right now. But other than that, there's nothing about this Sabres game that I think fans would have walked away from thinking that the world is going to end. It looked like a game where the Sabres didn't play well and a really good team. Remember, the Bruins had 100 points this year. They're a really good team, and a really good team played well. And I think everybody would have walked home thinking like, all right, well, game one didn't go our way. Better figure it out in game two. And yet in the blink of an eye, in literally less than 7 minutes of game time, the Sabres flipped that into a nearly going away win. I know Boston scored with 6 seconds left to make it a 1-goal game. Sorry for everybody who had Sabres minus 1.5 goals last night. But for the Sabres to have this ability to win that kind of game in the postseason, I know it was the first game of round one. I know it was against a team that is technically a 4 seed in the division. But that is still a good team who played a good game, and the Sabres just broke them in the last 7 minutes of the game. And I will give Buffalo credit. You know, this wasn't just a mystifying, oh my goodness, how could this possibly happen? They talked about it afterward. They said the strategy was, we wanted the puck to get past their defenseman. We wanted the defenseman essentially to be chasing the puck deep into their own end all night so that they would get gassed. And that's kind of what it looked like happened. Now, look, the first Sabres goal might have been as fortunate as the first Boston goal, where there's an unusual ricochet behind the net and Swayman gets caught looking the wrong way, not because he's a bad goalie, just because something weird happened. But the second goal, it does look like there are defensemen gassed who can't keep up with Tage Thompson. And we're going to talk about Tage Thompson in a second here. But the strategy, sometimes you hear, you watch a game where something wild and crazy happens. I mean, like I compared that game last night to the Bills-Ravens. It really felt like I watched Bills-Ravens over again, being in the building for Sabres-Bruins there. Bills-Ravens was, although there are X and O reasons to explain it, it just was a game where Josh Allen took over, right? In this game, and to just go back to that, you could sit here and say, well, we did this and that and the other thing, and strategy-wise, and some of those things may make sense. But in some ways, I think it's just trying to craft a narrative, trying to tape a narrative onto something where you really should just say, you know what, this is sports, and if you play 1,000 games, eventually you're going to get a 1 of 1,000 result, and that was this. And while there is a good chunk of that to this game for the Sabres, the strategy of wearing Boston out certainly seemed to ring true in the last 7 to 8 minutes of the game, because Tage Thompson, after getting harassed all game long, just simply was more energetic, more determined, potentially. But he moved faster and with more confidence than what Boston did defensively on the second goal. I mean, the Tage was just flat out better. And I do think that the idea of the Sabres wanting to dump the puck in deep, continuing to make Boston work over and over, I think that did ring true with the way this game ended. That I think the Bruins were, in fact, out of gas at the very end. Now, look, part of it, too, is there's a tidal wave that is washing through KeyBank Center, and the Sabres are the ones causing it, and Boston was the team that was drowning. That's a part of this, too. You could feel it. The moment Tage Thompson gets the first goal, you could see the cracks form in what Boston had been doing all game. And then when he gets the second goal, again, it just felt like, I wanted to call it an avalanche, but there's a team in the league named the Avalanche, so it didn't really work. It was a tidal wave. And speaking of, let's talk about Tage Thompson here too now. Because going into the postseason, you look at this Buffalo team, and it's clear they're ridiculously deep. I mean, between Thompson and Tuck and Zucker and Quinn and Even defensively, Darlene obviously is an offensive weapon. The Sabres have so many ways, so many answers for scoring goals that seemed to be the superpower. That seemed to be the strength. Like, unlike the Bills superpowers, they have Josh Allen and you don't. That's not what the Sabres do. The Sabres are deep. They play well together. And you saw it. It was fun. One of the things I enjoyed about being in the building is you almost get like an all-22 view of a hockey game. And I know, obviously, watching on TV, you can see most of what's going on the ice anyway. But being able to see the entirety of the rink all at once from the giant elevated position that I'm in, you get a little better idea of how well this team as a group sees the ice, how well they move the puck, and they don't go station to station to station. They will go cross ice. They skip past. The ability to keep the puck in motion and create offense in that manner, no matter who is out there, was one of the things I was most impressed by watching in person. And that's, again, a compliment to how good this team is, first line, second line, third line offensively. But they do have a star, and the star's name is Tage Thompson. And although he is the best player on the team, he is the 40 goal scorer, he is the guy who's the leader, I don't think anybody looks at Tage Thompson and sees Alex Ovechkin or Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid or any of those guys. He's kind of a second-level star. But I think in that game last night, I think Tage may have elevated to a brand new level. And I think Rasmus Dahlin kind of summed things up pretty nicely afterward.
We always talk about dogs have to be dogs, and today he showed up and led the team. That was special. We're gonna need him more.
Dogs have to be dogs, and Tage was more than just a dog, just a hard worker. Tage put the Sabres on his back at the end of this game. You think about those elite stars. Like earlier this year, Connor McDavid had a game against the Sabres where Edmonton rolled into the third period down 3-1, and 15 seconds into the third period, McDavid basically wins a faceoff, walks in on goal, and scores. That's what that level of star does. It's hard to do in hockey because of the way the game is built. It's not like football where the quarterback has the ball all the time, or basketball where it might also be 5-on-5, but you can essentially give the ball to one person and let them isolate. It's really hard to do that in hockey. And in this game last night, it felt like Thompson did that. That he went from being just the best player on a really, really good team to a new level of star. Because again, this Boston team is not bad. He's not doing this to the Blackhawks. He's not doing this to some last place embarrassment. A team like the Red Wings, which is now the current NHL leader in seasons without a playoff appearance. This is the Boston Bruins, who had 100 wins this year. And they were 8 points worse than Buffalo was. As good as the Sabres were, in Boston was practically the same season. They won 5 less games this year. This is not a terrible team. And when the Sabres absolutely needed Tage Thompson to do it, he just took the game over. He just walked Buffalo right back into a tie. And again, while the first goal was a little bit on the fortunate side with the bounce, another thing about that is when you have a player at the Connor McDavid level and he gets a bounce, it goes in your net. And that's what happened in this game. The Bruins had a bad bounce and Tage Thompson did not miss. And it wasn't the easiest wraparound. I mean, he had to be on top of it, but when things bounced Tage Thompson's way in that game last night when it was 2-0, he finished. And then when the Bruins seemed out of gas and Tage Thompson sensed an opportunity, he finished that one too to tie the game up. And this was a game where when you watch Tage Thompson throughout the game, he reminded me of an elite NFL edge rusher in that every single third down, that guy is going to get chipped by, he's going to get hit by a tight end, then a running back's going to come out, he's going to get double teamed. The whole night's going to be a pain in the neck for those edge rushers. And that's what it felt like Tage Thompson was dealing with. Every single time he touched the puck, there were 2 white jerseys around him. Constant physicalness, constant hits, constant pushes. There was very little opportunity for Thompson to find any sort of time and space until it was 2-1 with about 5 minutes to go. And again, the first time, maybe not the first time, but certainly one of the few times that Tage Thompson was afforded any sort of room, and he still had a man in his back pocket as he's scoring that goal. The puck ended up in the net. Guys at that level don't miss. It's one thing to dictate play and to, move the puck and be a pain in the neck for defensemen because of how big you are. It's another thing to just put the puck in the net and change games. And Tage Thompson did that in a way last night that I wasn't sure he was capable of. You don't get any higher level of star than what Thompson did in that game. Because again, his team was dead. They weren't playing terrible, but they weren't winning that game without the 2 goals he scored. And I don't think there's anyone else on that team who could have scored those goals. And to the point I'm making, I'm not sure there's 5 guys in the NHL who would have scored both of those goals. To me, this is the most important thing out of that first game, is seeing what Tage Thompson did and the level that he was able to elevate to. Because it's one thing for the Sabres to be able to roll 3-4 lines and have everybody be a threat. It's another thing to have at the top of that a singular talent that can change games on his own, not just impact games, not just be a part of not a voice in the chorus. Tage Thompson took that thing over at an absolute top of the league level. And the only question now is not, can he get there? Because we just saw him do it. We just saw Tage Thompson take a playoff loss against a pretty good team, not somebody who squeaked in, even if that is technically squeaking in what Boston did this year. Tage Thompson down 2-0 in a game where his team was generating almost nothing in terms of legit threats. He on his own flipped that into a tie. I mean, really, both plays were his own play. I know there were assists handed out on the goals. Both goals were basically Tage Thompson's solo efforts. And if Buffalo's going to have this guy that they can turn to on top of all the different lines, all the different offensive options they have, it's going to make them next to impossible to beat. And like I said, the Sabres come out of this game now with a feeling that there is no deficit they can't overcome. There is going to be no situation, no matter how dire it looks, that they're going to give up or move on or just admit defeat. Because it doesn't get more dire than what they were facing last night at 2-0 down to Boston. I mean, sure, they can be down 4-0 or whatever, more goals. Boston had that game. Boston had total control of that game. Even being outshot 2-1, that was the Bruins game to lose, and the Sabres took it from them. Specifically, Tage Thompson took it from them at a level that, again, I don't think there's many other guys in the NHL who can match. And that, to me, again, is the most important result from that game. That Tage Thompson, who's already one of the really, really great players in this league, one of the really dangerous offensive threats, may have ascended to that top of the league Connor McDavid franchise-altering level. And I don't know if it'll stay that way. And that's really the only question right now, is that, can he do it again? Is this just one good game, one amazing performance, one really good talent, having all the stars align for one particular game? Or is this just who Tage Thompson is right now? As for the series, like I said, it really kind of felt like that Boston had thrown their best uppercut, right? That Boston had the game the way they wanted it to be, had everything under control. Like I said, they were physically annoying. They were such a pest to Tage Thompson every time he had the puck. Every time anything got on net, Swayman most of the time covered it. Again, there were a couple of rebounds that bounced straight ahead, but he was plenty in control of the game, as was Boston defensively. They did everything that it would seem like they would want to do. So I don't know what you do now if you're Boston in game 2. I mean, the Sabres took the best shot, like I say here on the screen, that Boston had, and they just smiled and kept on doing Sabres things. They kept on rolling through the season. So if you're Boston, I don't know what you do. Now, I think what they will do, and I guess what I would do if I was the Bruins right now, is I would just roll out the same game plan and say, okay, let's just make it last 60 minutes instead of 52. Do all the same things we did in that game and then just not blow it late and see if that works. But already, if you're the Bruins, with the game plan that you had, that seemed to be pressing all the right buttons, doing all the right things. I mean, they didn't even really have to try and score. The majority of their offense was Sabres' mistakes that turned into breakaways. And despite Boston doing so many things right and seemingly rolling through the game plan exactly as they would hope, Buffalo still won the game. And again, it wasn't like they won it in overtime on some triple deflection from the point. They were up 2 goals in the last 2 minutes of the game. The Sabres were in total control. It wasn't like the Bruins blew it and then had a bounce and got unlucky. The Sabres just took the game. Everything that Boston was doing right, and the Sabres just said, "Nah, we're going to win now. We're gonna let me stop you right here with the whole, you got this game, we're just going to win it right now." It was the first time ever I saw, according to some stat I saw on X last night, that a team had led by 2 or more to 0 with 8 minutes to go and lost in regulation. So there have been comebacks before, like what the Sabres did, down 2-0 in a game where, again, they had not scored at all. There have been games where teams have forced overtime and won in overtime. But that was the first time ever in a playoff game that a team had not scored, was down multiple goals, and won the game in regulation. This Sabres team that has built its entire second half on doing things that no one has ever seen before, that are historically unique, just did it again in the postseason. I think one of the questions we had about the Sabres is, would they still be able to do all the same things when it's the playoffs? Remember, the playoffs are all different. You've got to put pucks on net and be responsible, and you can't necessarily play some of the wide open stuff the Sabres do. Didn't seem to be a problem, even when they were down 2-0. The only way I see Boston winning this series right now is if we discover over the next 2-3 games that what the Sabres did in that first playoff game is the fluke. And it can be. I don't think it will be, because the Sabres have been doing this all year. But there's a world where that goal that Thompson scored to make it 2-1, where it was a weird bounce behind the net, and he ends up getting what's essentially almost a free wraparound shot, where that is the fluke. And Boston's game plan that worked for 50-plus minutes just ends up working enough that they turn this series around. I mean, it is. I don't think it's going to happen, but you can see a world where Boston wins 3 of the next 4 because this defensive game plan that worked really well for 50-plus minutes just is able to work for long enough in a game. And or the Bruins did have a number of breakaway chances, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had a pretty solid night keeping that game within arm's length, because it could have been 4-0 instead of 2-0, and then it wouldn't have mattered. Tage Thompson would have been awesome. No one would have cared. They would have lost 5-2, and we'd be talking about why the power play is terrible. So, there is a world where Boston turns this around. But if the Sabres can win that game, I don't see how Boston wins 4 of the next 6. And really, I'm not even thinking about the Bruins anymore. I mean, the Sabres can win that game against a team that had 100 points. What series are they losing in this postseason? And sure, if you want to call me on overreacting to one game, this is like looking at week 1 of the NFL season and crowning a team a champion, you've got a great point. It's absolutely fair. But we've all seen enough hockey playoff games to know when one team is the better team. And for the first 50-plus minutes of that game, the Bruins were the better team. I know some people will say that the Sabres were getting goalied, and yet Swayman was having a really nice night. But that was more than just a goalie standing on his head. The Bruins had the better game plan. They got a break with a bounce that gave them an early goal. It was like watching a soccer game where the underdog team scores a goal, and then they just stack the bus and play defense the rest of the way, and eventually counter after counter after counter, somebody scores to make it 2-0 and the game was over. That's what it felt like. And I know hockey is obviously not the same as soccer, but you can do that in this sport, especially in the postseason. You get ahead, you go up 2-0, and then you grind out a win defensively. And it looked like that's exactly what the Bruins were going to do for the majority of the night until Tage Thompson and Matthias Samuelsson scored the goals and flipped the game on its head. And again, if Buffalo can win that game, it's hard to imagine them losing a series to anybody. Because again, this is not some team that squeaked in with 90 points that barely won more than they lost this year. I mean, the Bruins had 45 wins against 37 losses if you include the overtime stuff. They were a good team. They still are a good team. But for the Sabres to win that game, it was such a statement. Again, I mean, they took absolutely what felt like the best the Bruins had to offer and just smiled and kept on trucking. It was one of the more impressive things that I've seen in a hockey game or any sports event in a while. It was just an incredible thing to be a part of. And all the Sabres fans out there, I hope you're enjoying today, because that was just, one of the elite wins you'll ever see. And now the Sabres weren't the only ones, or the fans, I should say, weren't the only ones who noticed, because the Bills today began their veteran minicamp. This is another thing they get to do because they have a new coach this year. They're actually having a veteran minicamp before the draft. Most teams don't have their veteran minicamps till after the draft. So Josh Allen and Brandon Beane talked to the media, and Josh Allen was not afraid to express his support for the Sabres, even if he didn't actually watch the game last night.
I was on a plane, but I landed, and obviously the whole plane was going nuts. Got to watch the highlights right after. We'll talk about electric. That was fun to watch the highlights. So for the city of Buffalo, I think it's a better place when the Sabres are playing well, and it being the first playoff game in, was it 15 years? And to go in there and win the way that they did, that showed a lot of grit, showed a lot of heart. It's a team that, again, people I think kind of wrote off at the beginning part of the season. And they've come together rather quickly, and they're playing for each other, and you can see that, you can feel that. I think the buzz in the city right now it's electric.
Josh does say he's going to try and attend game 2 on Tuesday night, but Brandon Beane, Josh Allen, both in full Sabres gear. If you want to go to my X feed, Thad Brown 7, you can see Josh walking in all the Sabres gear. So it certainly is an easy opportunity for the Bills to get behind the Sabres. I will say that if you're a Sabres fan, I kind of feel sorry for you, because that game was so awesome that all the Western New York media today should only be talking about the Sabres. But whenever Josh Allen is in front of a microphone, Josh Allen becomes story one. And while he did spend quite a bit of time regaling everybody about his Sabres appreciation, he later on talked about being a dad. That's another thing you can find on my X feed, Thad Brown 7. And really, anywhere you see Thad Brown 7 today on all the social medias, you will find Josh Allen talking about being a dad and how Haley Steinfeld is a rock star. And Josh didn't reveal anything incredibly unique talking about being a dad. But Josh Allen, his first comments on being a dad, that unfortunately is going to trump the Sabres. And I'm sorry for Sabres fans, because you should be getting a full day's worth of the news cycle today. This should be a Sabres only day. Sabres addressed the media again this morning, getting ready for game 2. And fitting all those sound bites into a regular news program or a news cycle is going to be tough, because Josh Allen spoke. Even no matter how good the Sabres are going to get, Josh Allen is still the A1 star of Western New York. Because, football is that sport. And even if Tage Thompson ascended in this game, he doesn't have or has not reached yet the staying power of Josh Allen in terms of a star, even within his own sport. So when Josh Allen talks, that becomes story A1. And unfortunately, it's just going to overwhelm the Sabres stuff a little bit, even if Josh went out of his way to lay it on thick for the Sabres. He wore the Sabres sweatshirt, talked about how it's Buffalo's better when the Sabres do well. But just the way that the news cycle is going to work, the Sabres are going to lose out on what should have been a full 48 hours of Sabres admiration, Sabres praise, Sabres flowers. And it's not fair. And it's nothing the Bills could have done about it. This veteran minicamp has been scheduled for weeks. Today was the first day of it. Nobody knew the Sabres were going to do what they did in game 1 last night. Remember, that game could have just as easily ended 2-0. It could have easily been 5-0 Buffalo. And then, yeah, we've been talking about how great the Sabres are, but not in the way we are anyway. So there's just no way the Bills could have known. They really couldn't have adjusted. They announced this press conference a couple days before the Sabres even played game 1. Just a bad break. That this should be a full-on Sabres media extravaganza, and it still will be for a large part. I mean, the Sabres were the first 30 minutes of this show. But when Josh Allen talks, and Josh Allen talks about things like being a dad and maturing, and you get Brandon Beane talking about the draft and Joe Brady, people move on. And as great as the Sabres night was, the Bills are a big deal too and remain the bigger deal, at least for now. Sabres roll to a Stanley Cup, we might have a conversation. But for now, the Bills are the bigger deal. And it's just unfortunate that the Sabres, as good as that game was, as great as that performance was, as much as Tage Thompson accomplished, as great as the crowd was, as much fun as everybody had, as superb a sporting spectacle as Sabres game 1 was, when Josh Allen hits a microphone, that becomes the number one story. And it's too bad because the Sabres deserved to have a full day to themselves, at least, and they really won't get it. And it's nobody's fault. No one could have changed anything. And even Josh Allen did his best to leave the Sabres as number one. It's just unfortunately not going to work out that way. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk more about what the Bills had to say today, especially about the draft. Brandon Beane talked about some of the draft plans coming up. Joe Brady also, too, on Keon Coleman, more doubling down on his Keon Coleman support. We will get to that as well after a break. My name is Thad Brown. This is the Endgame. You're watching Rochester first, but the kids, the ones who all get everything to go their way, they call it Rock One. We're back right after a break. Thad Brown back here with you on the Endgame. Rachel Libert will be in a little while to do our weekly Monday segment. You see this? I got a good one. Rachel's got a good one this week too. Stuff a little off the beaten sports path, off the main track of things we talk about. That's what we do with You See This, to give you a little extra, something weird, something wild that we got our attention over the weekend. But Rachel will be in to talk about that in a little while. I also want to remind you that coming up tonight at 8:30 here on Rochester First, we will have another edition of PK Allen Nightly. Last one before the draft begins. Carl Jones will join me. We will talk about our plan for the Bills. What should the Bills do with those first couple of picks, the ones that really matter? I mean, you get down to round 5 or whatever, and you're picking depth guys and special teamers. So we will dive into round 1, round 3, maybe round 4 about what the plan should be for the Bills here coming up on Thursday when they go on the clock with round number 1. Speaking of the draft, like I said, Brandon Beane did speak to the media today. This is pretty much his annual pre-draft press conference opportunity. And I will say that the thing that kind of stood out to me the most is that there wasn't a whole lot that we got from Brandon Beane. He's usually been pretty forthright, and it didn't seem like he was trying to hide things. I mean, he said it was clear as mud is what he thought about what the Bills would do at pick 26. And I don't think that's Brandon Beane trying to be cagey for the media. I think that's Brandon Beane legitimately saying that, look, it's pick 26. You're not going to figure out what to do that much anyway. But especially this year, it's hard to figure out where everyone's going to land because there are so few standout talents. Although he did not put a number on it, he said that the number of first-round grades he had this year was on the lower end, which is consistent with what we've heard from most everybody else about this draft. And when he talked about going through the mock drafts today, it kind of felt like he was already tired of the experience. Now, look, I'm sure at this point, the Bills probably feel like they have done just about all you can do to get ready for round 1. You can continue to flip through mock drafts and try different scenarios out, but there's really no end in sight to that. You can, just because you did one today, it doesn't mean you've covered the one that'll happen. There's always a different scenario, a different path that you can trot out to say, well, what would happen if this happened? And it felt like Bean was a little bit frustrated with the whole process because of how little clarity he had on what he thinks the Bills are going to do at pick 26. But one of the things he said that stood out to me kind of emphasizes why all the stuff that we do when it comes to talking about the draft gets kind of ridiculous. We can break down arm length and positional value and, being able to take the best player on a board. At the end of the day, Brandon Bean, I think, did a nice job today summing up what really the point of this draft is about.
You're trying to just help your team this weekend. You're trying to, we don't have to hit homers, hit singles, doubles, triple, whatever it is. If a homer falls to you, great. But just continue to find ways to incrementally help our roster, whether it's depth, starters, special teams, whatever it may be.
And I think that might also be a comment on this year's draft, too. If you are going into this draft as a Bills fan or a Bills executive looking for a home run, you will probably swing and miss. There are just not that many home runs that are available in this draft. In fact, we might go 3-4 years down the road from now and decide there were 0 home runs available in this draft. Not Fernando Mendoza, not Alvel Reese, not Carnell Tate, not anybody. And I think that that's a good attitude for the Bills to have and for Brandon Bean to have, that, look, let's just help the team. Let's make them better. We've talked a lot on this show and any number of shows, and I think any number of Bills talking heads about, if the Bills want to find that elite player, you got to do it in the draft. You're not grabbing that guy in free agency. You might be able to trade for him, but it'll cost you an arm and a leg. Max Crosby and 2 first-round picks is a good example. And even the Ravens bailed on that trade. They thought it was still too rich for their blood when it turned around that they could give Trey Hendrickson a boatload of money and get a guy that way. You can't find the elite guys very often, if at all, by doing anything other than drafting them. So going into the draft looking for a home run makes sense from the point of view that that might be the only place you can hit them. And if I can understand frustration with the fans, that if the Bills aren't trying to hit a home run, then what are you doing? The Bills have plenty of doubles on this team, singles and doubles. The problem on this team is that the only home run they've had for a long time has been Josh Allen. So I get the desire from fans to try and find that elite game-changing talent. The problem is that guy may not exist in this draft. And you might be better off getting on base, putting the ball in play, than trying to swing for the fences. And I do wonder if that might be a little subconscious indication that maybe a guy like Caden McDonald will be more in play for the Bills at 26, that you are satisfied improving your run defense and missing out on one of the edge lottery tickets that could turn into a 12-sack-a-year guy. Because again, even though that this draft is deep with edge candidates, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of guys who are likely to be that home run elite number one, Myles Garrett level player, or even a Bradley Chubb level player. There may not be many, if any, of the guys who are going to be drafted who turn into that. So focusing on putting the ball in play, hitting your singles or doubles, I think makes a lot of sense for this draft, even if it might end up being a little overwhelming for where I think Bills fans feel this team needs to get to. The other thing that that kind of stood out in terms of what was said today, that came from Joe Brady, who many times has already expressed his confidence and his belief in Keon Coleman as a player. And he continued to double down on that. And I think that's the only phrase to use it. I don't really like doubling down because it kind of sounds like you're doing something stupid. Like no one ever says, well, that person doubled down on studying and made sure they got an A. Or that person doubled down on charity giving. Double down is always something you do on something stupid. I doubled down on the alcohol. I doubled down on not paying my taxes, stuff like that. But in this case, even though now look, it's not unfair to argue that Joe Brady expressing more confidence is a perfect use of the term doubling down because of how misplaced that confidence might be. But it didn't matter. Joe Brady apparently still wants to say how much he buys into who Keon Coleman is, even to the point today of saying, I have not doubted Keon Coleman's work ethic. He followed up with this.
I've never questioned his athleticism, right? And I think when we surround ourselves with the people, when he surrounds himself with the people that he needs down here, in this building, that it's all going to come together. And I have no doubt in Keon Coleman.
No doubt in Keon Coleman is pretty strong praise. pretty strong belief in a guy that really has not expressed or has shown a ton of reason for people to believe that he is that type of player. And maybe he will be. I still think the best way for the Bills to handle the Keon Coleman situation is to do what you can to nurture him, try and get him on the right track, give him 17 alarm clocks if that's what it takes, and try and find a way that he can get his act together off the field and maybe he can help you produce on the field. I think the idea of Keon Coleman living up to the standard of the 33rd overall pick, that's gone. That train is not ever coming back. But can he be a productive fourth receiver for you? Can he be better than what his trade value is right now, which might be a sixth for a seventh? I don't think if you're going to trade Keon Coleman, the only way you get anything of value for him is you'd have to find some team that was so in love with him in the draft process that has not moved away from that evaluation and still believes they can get that player out of Keon Coleman, and you might get a fifth-round pick from that team. And even that feels pie in the sky. So if the most likely scenario for the Bills, if they traded Keon Coleman, was a sixth for a seventh, to exceed that, if you get a fourth receiver that catches 30 balls and 3 touchdowns, you're probably fine. So maybe Keon Coleman does what Joe Brady says. Maybe he starts to work with the good surrounding pieces he has, starts to get advice from the right people, and is able to put his off-field baggage away and get things on track in terms of who he is off the field. It feels like a little bit delusional for a team that, now, look, they're not exactly the same, and Joe Brady's made it clear from day one that he is not an extension of the Sean McDermott administration. He's a brand new era. He's a brand new leader. And there are a number of different coaches on this team, including at wide receiver. But it still feels very similar to what the Bills had before. The training staff is still the same. The strength staff is still the same. There's a lot of similar pieces around what Joe Brady is so far as a head coach. So to buy into the idea that, well, if Keon Coleman now just immerses himself in what we're doing here, it's all going to be right. Really, I think a lot of Bills fans are going to find that a little tough to buy what the Joe Brady's selling right now. And it might work. Look, it might simply work from the point of view that we all grow up at a different speed, and maybe this is the year Keon Coleman figures it out. These things do happen. But I would not hold my breath for Keon Coleman to suddenly become a guy who walks the straight and narrow all the time. And the other thing about Joe Brady, too, is while I understand why he goes down this road, why he continues to show belief in his players, because he said, and this sticks with me, if I don't show confidence in my guys, how can they have confidence in themselves? I think that's a very smart thing to say as a coach in the media. But the number of times that Joe Brady expresses nothing but gushing confidence, I don't know how long you can do that before people start to tune out. And again, we talked about this a few weeks ago. If Joe Brady's not going to be real, then you can start to lose a locker room that way and a fan base to a degree. I don't know how much Joe Brady really needs to worry about losing the fan base. The fans don't call the plays. The fans don't sign his checks. The fans don't trade for his players. But at some point, you want the head coach to have some reality behind what he's talking about. I mean, Von Miller was a great example of that. Von Miller came in here and was relentlessly optimistic. It's a great way to live your life. If you're going to wake up every day and believe that you're going to succeed and things are going to go your way, it's a super good outlook to have. I think we should all live our lives that way. But how long did it take before Von Miller would talk about, oh, I'm going to be healthy by week 1. We're going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. And it didn't happen that people started to roll their eyes when Von Miller said all those things. This is the path that you wonder if Joe Brady is going to walk. Now, look, his coaching career is still real early. He's still figuring it out. So we'll see where this goes from here. But when Joe Brady says, I have never doubted Keon Coleman's work ethic, I think that's going to get a lot more eyes rolled than you will find belief, at least from the fan base. And maybe even from the locker room, too. All right, every single week, we bring in someone to join me for a couple different pieces of information, things that got our attention over the weekend. We call it You See This. Rachel Eibert in the hot seat today. Talk about something fun from over the weekend. I'm going to let you go first because I think yours is a little better than mine today.
We'll see. Mine's just I just love the Boston Marathon. I'll just start with that. The Boston Marathon.
This is where we're going to start the whole. You see this? I love the Boston Marathon. Okay.
You see this? I just love the Boston Marathon.
This is how it works, though. You have the floor now, so you can do what you want.
I mean, okay, so the Boston Marathon was this morning. I'm sure it's still taking place. There was, I think, 6 groups of runners this year, and they normally do 4, so they spread it out a little bit. But the 2 winners, unsurprisingly, from the men's and the women's, are both from Kenya. Kenya sweeps it basically every single year. Actually, since 2000, Kenya, a runner from Kenya on the women's has won it 18 times since 2000. From the men's, it's been 17 times. So they're pretty much the favorites every year to do this. But the men's winner this year, his name is John Career, broke the Boston Marathon record within 2 hours 1 minute and 52 or 2 hours 1 minute 52 seconds. It hasn't been broken since 2011. That is a pace of 4 minutes and 39 seconds per mile for obviously 26.2 miles. And every single year when the Boston Marathon comes around, even any marathon for that matter, any of the major marathons, and you just see that, it's just, I can't even really comprehend how fast a person has to be moving for that amount of time. It just blows my mind every single year. And then the woman who won it, her name is Sharon Lokedi. She won last year. Also, the man won last year too, the same guy. She ran a 2:18:51, which is a 5:17 pace per mile.
Really slow.
Also insane.
Yeah, right.
Kenyans took the top 4 women's spots this year. A U.S. woman took the 5th spot. But just like I said, I just love marathons in general because, for one, if you ever feeling like you've lost hope in humanity a little bit, just watch marathon TikToks. I'm not even kidding.
Really?
Yes, you have to look up just Boston Marathon TikToks or just people cheering people on. It's just I feel like it's brings so many people together. It's a little moment of oh, there's so much hope. And maybe it's because I'm watching these videos with inspirational music in the background and just these hope, all of these things happening.
Is the music on the videos, or do you play this yourself?
No, it's on the videos.
Okay.
It's on the videos. But marathons are such a, you just watch them and you feel so inspired by these people. Like I said, these people are running, even the people that aren't the elite athletes and they're just running the Boston Marathon. First, you have to qualify for it to even run it in the first place. But it's just insane to me how the level of athleticism that obviously you understand, but a 4.5 minute mile for 26.2 miles, I just can't even really comprehend that. It's crazy.
I can't imagine running a 4 minute mile ever.
Exactly.
That
Even if
feels
you're
I'm
doing
sprinting.
1 mile,
Yeah, right.
1 mile, and you're I'm going to go all out for this mile.
Right.
4:30 would still be insane, but to hold that pace for 2 hours is insane.
Let me try and poke holes in the whole inspirational musical. We're all cheering for each other thing. If I'm going to watch a marathon, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just watching people running by all day.
Yeah.
Right. Just one after another, arms pumping, going really fast, faster than I could ever go, for sure. But what else am I going to do other than cheer for these people?
But it's
because
just
there's no scoreboard, there's no referee, there's no defense. What else is there to do?
I mean, I think it's just at least the videos that I've seen, it's just the community of so many people, the fact that people just come together just to literally, like you said, cheer on people, and they're just running past them for 5 seconds. I think that's the whole thing. It's there doesn't have to be a scoreboard. You're just watching people do something that less than, I think, 1% of the world's population is ever going to do. So I think that is I don't know, it just gives you people, a human, they're coming together moment. I don't know. You have to look it up. You have to look up Boston Marathon,
I'm going to do
scroll
this.
through some,
yes.
and then get back to me and let me know if you feel inspired, because I'm sure you will.
I do agree with the idea that people have to make the effort to show up to root for the runners. So that's a thing. Just the one more niggle I have with you, right? If I'm going to a marathon, and again, all I'm going to do is root for these people, am I likely to be inebriated also at the same time?
I mean,
to increase the fun?
I think that would probably help.
And wouldn't that also increase the amount of cheering, right? Isn't that how probably would go?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know though. It's maybe that's how people are getting through it. But I don't know. I feel I would go to a marathon and just cheer people on, and I don't think I'd be bored. I think it'd be fun.
It sounds like it'd be pretty cool.
I think you make signs.
Right.
I don't know. I feel it'd be a fun time.
Now it sounds weird making signs.
You know, people make signs.
I know they do, but I'm saying me and you making signs would sound good.
For you just
People
just to
do.
cheer people on.
Not people I know make signs.
Maybe.
You know what? You know why I'm having such a problem with this? Because when my daughter got into TikTok 3-4 years ago as a 14-year-old, the natural parent reaction is nothing is real. Do not believe that.
No, you have to look up.
I know. There's legitimate.
Every time, like I said, every time a major marathon comes around, I always end up on that side of TikTok for the brief moment. And it's just inspiring. It's just I don't know. It's just inspiring.
I'm 1,000% going to check that out. In fact, next week or the week after, remember to bring this up to me. Like, did you watch a marathon on TikTok? Because now, is it just Boston Marathon or is it any marathon?
It's any marathon.
Okay.
I mean, obviously today this is what my feed has been, but I mean, I think when the New York Marathon wasn't too long ago, that one came up too. It's just just cool stuff.
That is interesting. That it is a TikTok phenomenon.
It is. It's like a whole side of TikTok.
Is it actually, does it do well, or is this something that just
No, I think it really does do well. I think, like I said, like, not to keep going on about this, but just
I'm asking all these questions. I'm fascinated right now.
I think just people seeing something that one, you're like average person is never going to do, like run a marathon, Boston Marathon, regardless. Like seeing other people accomplish that, I think one is like what makes it a successful thing, and two, just I think, like I said, just finding like community and like watching people just kind of gather, just to literally just cheer people on, like you said. Like I think it's just a cool thing. I think that's why it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a niche thing to me, but it does exist. There's a marathon side of TikTok.
I'm 100% going to look that up. Do I just search marathon or?
Yeah, Boston Marathon, yeah.
All right, mine is not as inspiring, but it is way more weird. There was a baseball game in Division I over the weekend that was a 21-inning game and ended with a balk. It was Northern Colorado and St. Thomas, Minnesota. You throw the records out when they get together, and as I'll demonstrate in a second, they'd be happy to throw the records out this year. 8-7 was the final. It is the 8th longest Division I game by innings in history.
Okay.
The game started on Friday. They played 10 innings to get dark. Everybody had to go home. They came back and played 11 more innings.
That's crazy.
And had the game decided by a walk-off balk. There was a sac fly in the 9th that tied it at 5. Then nobody scored 10th through the 18th. And for all the people out there that think the ghost runner is stupid in baseball, this is the kind of stupid results you get without a ghost runner. A discussion for a different time. Both teams scored 2 runs in the 19th inning, and then in the 21st, bases loaded, 2 outs, and the pitcher commits a balk. Now, if anybody looks it up on social media, you'll see it as controversial balk, and we can't show it to you because of highlight restrictions, whatever. It was a balk. You know, it was the guy comes together, and how well do you know the balk rules? Probably you're a softball player, so yeah, okay. So he comes together, and there's a little shoulder hesitate, and I'm overdoing it here to show, but if you look for it, you can see it. And you just can't, once you come together, you got to go to the plate. You can't fake.
Yeah.
So it was a balk, even if people say it was controversial. And I don't remember who won, to be honest. Oh, Northern Colorado won. Northern Colorado comes off the out of the dugout and celebrates like it was a walk-off homer. It was what it was. Like I said, throw the records out. The two teams combined after this game, 10-53. Combined, 10-53. So this is not a game that's going to determine like NCAA championship seeding, but it was one of the more wilder baseball results you'll see.
I wonder how long that pitcher, like how many innings had that pitcher pitched? Like,
it's a good question.
Was this like he's getting exhausted out there and a mistake happens, or was he like a reliever for the 21st inning? Like what's going on? I don't know
if I'll be able to find it here in the last 2 minutes of the show, but I will try and look it up. I know everybody used like 12 pitchers or something stupid like that.
For that to only be the 8th longest, though, I feel like there's 8 or 7 longer games than 21 innings, and that's
been a lot of colleges, a lot of games over the
true.
years. You know, let me see, St. Thomas, Minnesota baseball. It was funny before I got ready for this. I'm like, let me get all the relevant details. Let me tell the story. That I didn't think of how long. That's actually a good one.
Like how many pitches?
Yeah. It's a very relevant story here.
Because like if he just got on the mound and like that's his first, or he's like that's his inning.
Right. Yeah.
If he's been out there for 5 innings, maybe I'm like give him a little more leeway of okay, well maybe he just wanted to go home.
Scrolling down here to where is that game? Here it is. 8-7 and 21 innings. Box score. St. Thomas. So Nolan Kemp is the pitcher. It was his 2nd inning. If I'm reading that right. Wait. Let me make sure I got who won and lost this game correctly.
Was he like actively like super upset when this happened? Like on the mound? Did he like?
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know how it works. A pitcher gets called for a balk. They never thought they, because you know the things to do to avoid it. You think you did it, but there was definitely a flinch. Yeah. He went 2 innings. So I'll tell you what, St. Thomas in 21 innings, they used 4 pitchers. I knew I should have gone to the box score. I didn't. I knew I should have dove into the box score and looked at everything.
4 pitchers for 21 innings.
The starter went 6 1/3. They brought a reliever in who went 3 2/3, and that was the 10 innings. So then they stopped. They must have just gone with a new starter. He went 8 2/3 innings, And like I said, 8
I guess
shutout
since
innings.
it was
yeah.
2 days of
Yeah.
baseball, that does make more sense.
In fact, both teams on the second day had a pitcher who got the first 26 outs, who went 8 innings and 2/3. And they both then gave up 2 runs in the 19th
That's
inning.
crazy.
So, yeah. Yeah, what a game.
That is nuts. I can't imagine being that pitcher.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you would feel like your team is just hates you. I mean, at that point, too, like you're in 21 innings. I feel like how much do you feel like it's at stake? Are you like, oh, we really need to win this? Or you're just kind of like, let's just get this game over?
I mean, you tell me you played baseball at a higher level
Yeah.
than I did, softball, whatever. I would think once you got past like inning 15, this is the highlight of your season, right?
That's
this is
true,
your World
yeah.
Series for a
Yeah.
team that's currently 7-26. You wanted to win that game,
That's
I
true.
think.
You know, for sure. I mean, I think regardless, you want to win the game. But at what point is it like, well, we lost, but we get to go home now? You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
no, they had to.
but
I think they had to play the second game.
Oh,
It was the first
okay.
game of a series. So they were playing another game after that one was
Oh,
over.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, yeah.
So no one's going home, I don't think.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
That's it's getting worse. Every stat we uncover, it just gets worse.
I know. I knew I should have gone to the box score. All right, Rachel Labra, good stuff as always. Thanks for joining me. No show on Thursday, by the way, draft day. So we will be off. We'll see you again on Monday, wrap up all the things the Bills do, and looking forward to more Sabres fun, especially if it's going to be like game 1 was on Sunday. For Rachel Labra, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching. The news is next right here on Rochester First.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 on demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.